Hello and welcome to Upfront. I am Kang Titty. A lot of attention and criticism ringing out from various groups of people here in Korea following the highly anticipated opening of IKEA, a major global home furnishing giant. On today's Upfront, we discuss the controversy surrounding the expansion of large global multinational businesses like IKEA into the Korean market. Now, of course, we have a great panel of experts to go upfront on this topic with me. First up, Minister Kwon Tae-shin, President of the Korea Economic Research Institute. You're here to give us an economist point of view. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we are joined by Seo Yong-gu, President of Korea Distribution Association, an expert, obviously, in the field of distribution. Thank you for joining us.
Cheers.
And Professor Song Se-ryun, not a new face, I would say, to this program from Kyung University, who can walk us through the legal aspects of this topic. Welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
Now, before we delve any deeper into today's topic, let's first take a look at this report to recap what controversies IKEA had to deal with in the lead up to and in its initial stage of Korea operation.
Annual sales of about $34.8 billion in 2014. 361 stores around the world with over 800 million visitors. IKEA, the world's largest furniture retailer, is often called a retail giant in the furniture industry. It's been a month since IKEA has opened its store in the Korean market on December 18th. According to Gwangmyeong City, the number of visitors has averaged 32,000 per day, which is about 570,000 in total so far. It has 65 showrooms with a total of 8,600 items ranging from home furnishing goods to decorating items. Despite the strong interest from local consumers, the opening of IKEA in the Korean market has also sparked controversies. A month after the opening of the IKEA store, many furniture stores in the surrounding area have already given up their businesses. IKEA is also selling a variety of daily supplies including stationery, food, and even batteries, which has made small businesses like restaurants and supermarkets lose their customers. But that is not all. IKEA has been well known for its reasonable prices, and it has also said low prices would extend to the Korean market as well. However, it has recently emerged that IKEA was charging much more for the same items in Korea than it was in other countries, which has caused anger among Korean customers.
Every time if a product becomes a loved IKEA product in Korea, then there's and the volumes drop, then that is something that we can look at to reduce prices in the future.
And a storm of condemnation also rose over IKEA's sales of a map in which the body of water between the Korean peninsula and Japan is labeled only as the Sea of Japan.
Take a moment to apologize for the issue we have created to name the Easter Sea only Sea of Japan.
Can IKEA, one of the world's top furniture retailers known for its creative ideas and low prices, successfully make a place in the Korean market?
So obviously, this is not the first global business coming to Korean the market, but a lot of attention, a lot of criticism. Why do you think that is?
I think mainly these days the issue of protection of traditional market and mom and pop shop is a key issue these days. And after presidential and Congress election, the issue of economic democratization became very subtle these days. And maybe that is the reason why we are discussing it.
That's exactly the reason why we chose this topic. Where do you think this controversy comes from?
I think many young generation people are waiting for arrival of IKEA. They are excited, basically.
It's a lot of anticipation, but at the same time, this protectionism sentiment coming through, right?
Right. If we think about the big issues these days, the bullying of big companies have been discussed a lot in the context of economic democracy, and we are outraged about Japan's insensitivity to Korean the history and the social identity. So if you think about IKEA, it's big, it's a big company, and also it's a foreign force that might be displacing our small mom and pop stores. So I think it's kindling people's idea of a social justice, whether this is what's wrong with this Korean society or even the capitalism in general.
So against that very backdrop, we're seeing this move coming from the political circle here in Korea to somehow regulate that, limit its power. So for example, mandatory holidays for IKEA. What kind of consequences would that bring on the part of IKEA, obviously, local competitors, as well as consumers, and Korea as a whole, as a country who's looking to bring in money from overseas companies? What kind of effects would that have?
The problem of Korean politics, when some issues happen, they try to regulate it by rules and laws. But at the end of the day, they may hamper or deteriorate the people whom they want to protect. So as a result of this kind of mandatory holidays effect, done by our research institute, after they put that kind of mandatory holidays for big supermarket or a big market, the benefit for those traditional market or mom and pop shop has increased only $48 billion won a year. And sales of the supplying companies went up 38 billion won a year. So when we add all of them, other things, $90 billion won's benefit by putting mandatory holidays to big department store or big the retail market. So even though they put that kind of mandatory holidays, the effect is very small. But it gives more damage to consumer and suppliers and the market itself. As a result, it reduces the number of employees. So this kind of government intervention does not function well.
Okay. Coming from your expertise in distribution, what kind of message does it send to the market, to the consumers, and potential foreign companies who are coming to Korea?
Yeah, Korean retail market has opened since 1996. Rather, full-scale market opening happened in 1996. It means regardless of the number of stores and regardless of the store size, any foreign company can open its store in Korean soil. So since then, a lot of companies, such as Carrefour from France and Walmart from the United States, came to this market. And of course, Tesco, store brand name is Home Plus. Also, Tesco came to Korea. But two of the big three companies pulled out of this market 5 to 6 years after. So for the last 10 years, there has been no big arrival in this market. So if we apply, because mandatory holiday law is mainly for supermarkets, big large-scale supermarkets, and also hypermarket. So if we apply it to this measure to IKEA, so it's a totally different story. Nowadays, a lot of some movement going on, you know, applying this regulation on IKEA-style store. So I don't think it is proper.
I looked at both sides meaning Korea is a political circle and IKEA, and it gets a little technical, to be honest with you. But so basically, the political circle is saying that you cannot be an exception here. But IKEA is saying, no, we are specializing in the home furnishing industry, so we cannot be categorized as one of those hypermarkets and discount retail chains. What do you think here? Who has a better argument here?
I think both has a little bit of, deficient argument in the way we're looking at it. I think it has to do with the market economy that we have in Korea. I think we cannot disregard the fact that there is a social concerns that the government has to address. So we're balancing this market mechanism that we have to have a reasonable functioning of. And the other side is that there is some social outcry about the polarization of wealth and the social injustice and those things. So how do we strike a balance? I think the deficient part of it is that they are using, bringing in regulation to kind of force feed it with the mandatory holidays and all those. And as Mr. Kwon mentioned, the effect is dubious. So I would kind of fall on the side where the regulation, unless it is surgically very specifically drafted and well drafted, probably it's going to do more harm than good.
And would that eventually somehow work to turn off global investors and companies from entering the Korean market in the end?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there is kind of evidence that our politicians try to make Korea business climate worse and worse by putting more regulatory things there.
Is Korea quite a demanding market in terms of government regulation and the public sentiment and, of course, what consumers want? Do you guys agree with that?
I think so it is. When one company considering entering into foreign market, they consider two major factors. One is market attractiveness. So Korea nowadays, we are losing some attractiveness in terms of demographic structure is not favorable to retail companies because the key consumers aged 30 to 54, the number is decreasing, since 2012.
So that's less attractive because
the number of customers are diminishing.
Okay,
The demographic issues,
right?
Yeah.
Because Korea is fast aging society. When the portion of the people aged over 65, more than 7%, it is you call aging society, and then the portion is more than 14%, you call it aged society. Year 2000, Korea became aging society. Year 2018, 3 years later, we will reach aged society. So real work power will reduce. Absolute numbers will decrease from 2016. And total population will decrease if this speed goes 2030. So we are right.
Yeah, we are talking about market attractiveness. So Korea is not attractive enough to foreign retailers. Number two factor is market risk. We are considering number two factor, market risk, when we considering entering into foreign market. And so by this kind of imposing regulations, risk level is coming up.
For foreign companies, Korea could be a very attractive market because one, there are too much regulations on the domestic firms. So there are some areas where foreign firms can create a niche market or come in and not affected by the over-regulated environment. But on the other hand, Korea has an income level that can attract a lot of different companies. And Korean consumers, I would think, is a tough customer and smart customer.
Yes.
And when they see the value, probably they are the first ones to kind of spot on what kind of values the companies attract. So if they can make it, probably they can make it big in Korea. Probably that's why IKEA has the biggest store, their flagship store in the world.
Okay. What about the lessons that we can learn from the example of Walmart? Or, like you mentioned, DIY culture. It's not too big here in Korea. It does give consumers one more choice. But it's not very much appreciated here in Korea because Korean consumers are very can I say spoiled in a way, because we get great service anywhere else. So
I think that's the issue of the company itself, whether they can adapt to new environment. As you said, Korean customers are not accustomed to DIY, but they can induce some specialists who do DIY for customers. So by those means, consumers' choice, consumers' welfare can increase. What Walmart and Carrefour didn't do well, they didn't know Korean market, Korean customers, the characteristics.
At this point, let's get another opinion on this from outside of the studio, connecting to a legendary figure in the marketing world to hear his opinions regarding the expansion of global firms in the Korean market. Professor Kevin Keller from Dartmouth College is joining us via Skype. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor. My first question to you, why do you think is the reason for such a strong opposition or attention within the domestic market here when a global business enters?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. Part of it's just that, a global company comes in, people, consumers aren't that familiar with them. They're sort of used to their existing businesses, the local businesses. The local businesses have been serving those customers for a long time. So it's always that fact that you've got something different, something new. And these global companies, typically when they come in with a different business model. They have a different approach, a different sometimes strategy. And many times that can be one that offers a lot of value and in a different kind of way to those consumers. So they really pose a threat to those local companies.
All right. So there's this fear factor, uncertainty. So the question seems to be on what initiated such controversies regarding global businesses going global. Their pursuit of profit and promotion of quite aggressive marketing strategies. Are they the problem?
Well, I think, in a lot of cases, these companies, they're seeking their own interests, but they have to be sensitive to be successful. They have to be very sensitive to those local markets. And so it's a natural growth strategy for any company. So especially once you've been developed and been very successful in your home market, then going to an international market is just a natural growth strategy. So almost all the top companies in the world have done that at different points of time. So the question is not if so much, it's more about how and when. And the how part is doing it in a way that is something that's positive for that local country, positive for the consumers, done in a way that's competitively sort of valid, if you will, or done in the right kind of manner. And I think that's really the kind of the key question, because these companies are going to look outside their own borders to grow. That's always been the case, always will be the case. And the question is where and when and how. And I think that's where a lot of the controversy comes. It's as if companies do things inappropriately, if they do things poorly, in which case they'll fail. But there's a lot of, those are the real questions. It's not going to be a question of if, because it's always going to happen.
All right. Then what should global companies like IKEA do to stay in the Korean market?
For IKEA, I think what they have to do is understand and respect the Korean consumer and how they choose to buy in their categories. I think they have to have a business model that's one that's appropriate in sort of all kinds of ways in terms of how they actually go about sourcing, selling, just sort of every aspect of the business. So it really is sort of making sure that they're doing things in kind of the right way, one, and two, in a relevant way, so that they really are appealing, in a way that's compelling to Korean consumers. And then lastly, they've got to differentiate themselves. That's to be successful, you always have to give consumers a choice, a better choice. So that's the better choice is going to come from being really relevant, doing everything the right way, and really offering that value in a unique fashion to those Korean consumers.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Kevin Keller there from Dartmouth College. So let's come back to the studio, and then we were talking about global companies' localization strategies here in the Korean market. What would be the key to be able to localize successfully here in the Korean market, especially in the industry that IKEA is in?
I can tell you a good example. About 25 years ago, I went to African country for business, and then I invited the government official to Chinese restaurant. I was astonished to see how Chinese restaurant can adapt itself to each country's taste and style.
Right.
So they eat rice with hands. Even Chinese restaurant. That's how they can survive.
Sure.
Okay. Well, one factor that IKEA was not really reading very well or read very well is the pricing. One complaint that we keep hearing from Korean consumers is that they feel like they are being ripped off by these large international retailers. IKEA is no exception. Some of its items were actually more expensive than in other countries. Let's take a look at this next report to find out why Koreans might feel a little more cautious or hesitant in embracing these foreign brands' pricing policies.
1 month has passed since IKEA opened its store in Korea, and a new Korean website has been generating interest. It compares prices of all the products being sold in IKEA around the world. It even compares prices in Korean won according to the current exchange rate. The Korean government has decided to investigate the pricing policy of IKEA following a controversy surrounding large price differences in Korea and elsewhere. The Korean Fair Trade Commission will announce the result of its analysis of the prices of IKEA products in February. But it's not a case limited only to IKEA. Global companies, including IKEA and Starbucks, have been at the center of what's been called unfair pricing policies in the Korean market. Even considering the inflation rate, some prices were over 2 times more expensive within the Korean market than other countries. According to the survey conducted by Consumers Korea targeting 13 different countries, prices in Korea ranked in the top 5 for 35 out of 42 products. And among them, 8 have the highest prices in Korea. Given consumer unrest over unfair pricing policies, will the global retail furniture giant be able to thrive in Korea? Or will IKEA be forced to leave because of local pushback?
All right, so we talked about the pricing policy of IKEA. Certainly came under fire for that. I don't know if it was more than one particular item, but we did research. We, meaning Korean consumers, did research, and we had all this price ranges going for this one particular product in many different countries. It was charging more for some of the products. Is that going to backlash for IKEA?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's up to their pricing strategy. When it comes to top-notch items, like costumes or handbags or those things, Korean people want expensive ones. So you should put price very high. Then you can sell more. But if it is very competitive, and then if you can buy other things, if IKEA insists putting high price, they cannot sell.
IKEA, I have to think that since pricing is such a core strategy of a company, they have done a lot of research into Korean market. So it seems to me that if they are putting a high price on certain items, they are banking on the expectation that Korean people will look at IKEA as a premium brand, just like expensive items. Whether they will succeed or not, that's going to be something that we can watch. And that goes into the question of whether they are reading this market well, whether they are reading this consumer well, and whether consumer will respond to their strategies. And it seems like it's mixed bag at this point. I see a lot of complaints from the consumers, where you're supposed to be low-cost
Exactly.
leader, and how come it is not? And there are price comparison sites propping up. So it seems like IKEA has to really look at the next move.
Right. I mean, I do have to make a note here that it was not all products of IKEA that were more expensive than in other countries, and we do have other examples of other global brands that are a little pricier in the Korean market, like Zara and H&M. Yes, I do shop at those brands, but what would be a takeaway then from examples of Walmart or Carrefour, other retail giants that fail to read the Korean consumers? What would be the key factor that would either help, make, or break IKEA's operation here in Korea?
For example, Walmart has failed in some sense because of the mismatching of Korean retail situation, you know, of their format. You know, Walmart is basically discount stores. They are not good in selling food items, you know.
Right, dry products only.
So Korean consumers, you know, they enjoy going to market every day, daily basis. So without selling food item, it is very difficult to draw customers.
And also they try to reduce cost by having fewer staffs, which can help customers. So Koreans, we want to ask the staff, but they don't have staff. And the size is too big, and it is too far away from downtown. And then it's not good for shopping.
There are many issues, location issues, but basically mismatching of their retail format into this retail situation. And Carrefour has failed, I guess, because they are poorly managed supply chain management, SCM, supply chain management. They really poorly managed with the relationship with the suppliers. So Carrefour, the culture is very dictation-oriented culture. So Korean suppliers very hate that kind of a company culture. Does not fit into Korea's retail ecosystem.
In this kind of examples, what we can see is that the consumer sometimes the best judge of whether there is a good practice or not. And going back to the regulation questions, whether we have to put artificial regulatory walls to protect certain segment of people, probably a lot of times it's better to have the market take care of it, because as you can see, Walmart and Carrefour have failed, and with a DIY strategy, we don't know whether it will be attractive to Korean consumers or to aged society. Maybe DIY is not really an attractive option to go by. So those are questions that consumers can judge. And if they bring in the innovations to overcome that, there is some certain things that we can learn from. So I think this could be a good opportunity for a lot of industries, especially fragmented industries, to wake up and look at the global standards.
And staying with that point, I mean, we did talk about a regulatory environment here in the Korean market already, but having that excessive, or okay, I shouldn't say excessive, but artificial regulation going for to protect Korean businesses here in the Korean market, oftentimes could make that leave that loopholes, so that yes, we want to protect small businesses in Korea. So large corporations, Lotte and Samsung don't come into this certain categories of businesses like bakeries. But that's where foreign companies could come in and take advantage. So how do we explain this loophole, or do we want to plug all these loopholes?
My basic thinking, market decides. Market is smarter than the government. So it's better to have less government intervention. When it comes to this issue, the Distribution Industry Development Act puts the ban on opening supermarket near the traditional market, or put regulation limited operating hours. They cannot open at nighttime, when they should have a mandatory holidays for 2 days or months. That kind of thing is going backward. the most notorious closed society used to be Japan. But even Japan abolished that kind of most heavy regulations on retail business sector from 2000. And then the place where I lived, London and Paris, even in Paris, when Sarkozy came in, they reduced regulations on department store to open on Sunday. So it's up to consumers whether to buy or not, whether to go or not. It's like my own experience. Screen quota. Until 2006, we used to have a screen quota. Means all Korean cinemas should run Korean movies at least 2/5 of a year, compulsory. So when I raised this issue, it is against the global standard. Many the screen movie makers, directors, they make their hair bald and strike on Gwanghwamun for 100 days. But many young people responded, it's our choice. If you put compulsory regulation on consumers buying, then why do you smoke American brand cigarette? Why do you drive Mercedes-Benz? So it's up to consumers.
Well, just to strike a balance, a little bit of pushback is that I do agree that the over-regulation is generally more harmful than good. But there is such thing as a burgeoning new businesses, new industries that the state has to protect. It's the same discussion as the globalization and the local indigenous industries. I think that the government has to provide help to the small to mid-sized firms, but not in a way that it just protects or put up an artificial wall. Maybe more incentives to the trainings and capacity building, just like screen quota to examples. I think that one of the things that helped those young people to grow, there was a tremendous emphasis on the content developing, and there were a lot of support from the government. I think that might have helped the content side of the entertainment industry to grow and be competitive to the Hollywood movies and other content items. So it can be a lesson to say that it's not good just to protect the small to mid-sized firms or the mom-and-pop stores. Maybe introducing certain amount of competition, but at the same time giving them the support for the capacity building and innovation. I think that could be
I think that's the role government should do.
That certainly seems to be the underlying theme that we're going for today. A market will decide. But for one thing that IKEA came under fire for, Korean consumers, the Korean market was not so much forgiving. It came under fire for labeling the waters between South Korea and Japan as a Sea of Japan. And that kind of labeling is not going to be forgiven by a lot of Koreans, given what's going on with Japan. What kind of impact will this have on IKEA? It came under fire in the very initial stage of its entrance in the Korean market. Would that turn off Korean consumers?
The IKEA is not an expert or is not a political entity, so whatever they say is not putting down their foot and make a political statement. I think at best they would say, well, they were insensitive. They didn't do research enough into this market to know that we have a very sensitive year about the relationship with Japan. So I think that's how they do business in Korea, how they research into our consumers and change their behaviors or change their strategies accordingly. That would be
how they will respond to all this.
Right.
Right, and in discussing its appropriate response to all this, some people talk about this idea of a corporate social responsibility, CSR we often talk about. So is that going to be a way for IKEA to somehow change its behavior in the Korean market? I mean, we're not just talking about charity works or donations here, right? How does the concept of CSR play in this discussion?
I used to be Korean ambassador to the OECD from 2006 and 2008. In the OECD, we discuss a lot of issues, even CSR. And then their moral standard, European countries, especially Nordic countries, moral standard of corporations much higher than US or Korea. So they think about CSR, but we cannot levy them any burden. It should not be compulsory. It should be voluntary.
I think that the CSR questions, it's fruitless to single out IKEA or the foreign companies. It's a responsibility of all companies, and especially in Korea, because of the certain sentiment towards the big companies and also the foreign companies. I think IKEA probably should be more sensitive, but overall discussion should be any company in Korea doing business probably should be very sensitive to their social responsibility. And IKEA has not had a very bad scores on that regard, except for the naming issue on the map. So probably we should see their responses in, what kind of global standard did they bring in.
Okay, now let's continue talking about corporate social responsibility, and we're going to connect to an expert on this concept of CSR. Martin Neureiter, founder and CEO of CSR Company International, is joining us. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. First question, a lot of controversies have raised regarding the opening of IKEA, global furniture retailer, in the Korean market. Is this the right example of case that where we need to talk about CSR?
Well, in general, CSR is not opposing any changes or developments or evolutions in a specific market. There's always change in the market. There's new players, new technologies, new industries coming. They will change the impact on the existing society. So by IKEA entering the Korean market, that as such is not bad or good. It's a normal economic development. The issue is, how does IKEA manage this entry into the Korean market so that it deals with the impacts as good as possible? So in general, it is the question around CSR and companies entering new markets is how to deal with these impacts. How do we address things that we bring new technologies, we bring new ways of sales, we bring new marketing technologies, etc. So how do we address these impacts? It doesn't mean that CSR would say, no, you shouldn't go there, or you should not do that. It would be ridiculous to think that, because that's the normal evolution of markets.
Well, then what do you think can be some ideal role models, good examples that have fulfilled these socially responsible roles?
I was thinking a lot about that question, and there are a number of very good examples. One example that we work, for example, with and are very well acquainted with is Marks & Spencer. Marks & Spencer, a British retailer, I believe also active in Korea. They have a CSR program which is called Plan A. And if you ask them why it is called Plan A, the answer is because there is no Plan B. This is the only way forward. We can only survive as a business if we implement CSR into every aspect of our being, of every aspect of our business decision, in every aspect of any action that we take.
All right, Mr. Neureiter, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Mr. Neureiter, CEO of a CSR Company International. So we've had a pretty good run talking about controversies surrounding IKEA, not only about IKEA, but many global brands, their experiences in the Korean market. So at this point, we need to talk about what we can do, we as in Koreans and Korean government officials, company leaders and consumers and regulatory officials do in order to make Korean market more of a viable environment for both domestic as well as foreign players. So, I mean, this is a big question, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Korea cannot survive disconnecting from the world because we are too much dependent upon world economy. The trade dependency ratio of Korea is more than 100%. So if we don't follow global standard, then there is no room for us to survive. So Korea should behave like Singapore, Hong Kong, Netherlands, Switzerland. We should meet global standard because we sell so much abroad. Then we should welcome foreigners come here. That can help our economy. But the hurdles, as we discussed, there are many things. The too much nationalistic way, do not want the foreigners make money in Korea, as we saw in Lone Star case, or government regulation, or very rigid labor market. As a result, it is shameful. While all our competitors, their FDI is much higher than us. Even China, they have more than maybe ours. The 2013 $15 billion FDI a year, whilst the economic size of Singapore and Hong Kong 1/4 of us, but Hong Kong $65 billion, Singapore $55 billion. That means we should do more to improve business climate. That means equal treatment, level playing field for everybody. Because we do business abroad. We sell a lot of things. We do business in China. And China, different to treat us, then we will be in problem. And that's the only way we can survive, to follow global standard.
Okay.
There is a market shock in the form of IKEA, and I can think of other market shocks that we have experienced. iPhone is another market shock we received. Rather than just trying to protect from the market shock, especially when the shock comes in the form of innovation and new ideas and new form of vanguard industry they do globally, probably this is an opportunity rather than the risk. Government should not just sit by idly, but they have to provide the support for the SMEs to increase their capacity, increase their capability, and maybe financing and all kinds of things that they have not really been doing in the past to grow the service industries and small to mid-sized business firms. I think the government has said time and time again that our future for the employment and the economic viability is the SMEs, small to mid-sized firms, and the service sector. Why not start with or include the furniture sector, whether do it in the government level or in the provincial level? I think that something has to be done, but not in the form of just regulatory protection.
All right, so wrapping up this conversation, we've talked about how we need a healthy level of competition that's necessary, and we can let the market decide it to some extent. So I want to get your final thoughts. Maybe I will start off with Professor Suh.
Yeah, I think currently there are so many unnecessary regulations existing in Korean retail market, and so instead of regulations, I think we need to build more collaboration strategy between big companies and small mom and pop stores. So instead of regulations, I think we need to collaborate. We need to encourage. We should have some kind of incentive programs for big retail companies to invest more on CSR or CSV, creating shared value. And for example, big companies can provide training program for mom and pop stores owners, or small retail companies employ fewer than 5 people. We call small retail shops. So they can get regular training programs, from big company expertise. So that kind of collaboration programs is needed rather than strong regulations. There are so many side effects. It is why, yeah.
All right, and Professor Suh?
I think that it is true that the introduction of IKEA causes very much alarm to now fragmented and small furniture stores. They feel the urgency, the level of survival. I think the government has to give attention to them with the financing and give some help in restructuring their industry so that they will find the niche or find the competitiveness to go up against big companies like IKEA.
Okay, and Minister Kwon.
I think for the benefit of Korean people and then the foreign companies, we should make Korea a better place to do business. But that means we can have more foreign investors and Korean companies invest more, which can create more jobs for young people. Especially there are too many regulations in service industry sector, like education, medical services, contents. We cannot have the like a Google or Facebook in Korea because too many red tapes. So we should make Korea a better place to do business. Comparing with other countries, World Economic Forum, there are 148 countries compared. Among them, red tape, Korea, low 95th degree, grade rank. The labor, the competitiveness, 130. So, and also to make things worse, we have some tendency of anti-business sentiment, which we discussed. So, looking at the experience of New Zealand agriculture, until 1980s, too much protection by giving subsidy and then tariffs, no entry barrier for foreign products. When they opened it, a lot of demonstrations by New Zealand farmers. But now, after experiencing competition from abroad, they make their agriculture very commercialized, very top quality scientific method. So New Zealand agriculture is now exporting industry. So in that sense, I'm with our President Park's policy this year. We need to have a full regulatory reform in the area of labor, government entity, education, and financing. By doing that, we can make Korea a better place to do business, not only foreigners, but also Koreans.
Okay, so let's watch the current administration's deregulation drives or a healthy level of regulatory and, of course, the future of IKEA here in the Korean market. Let's leave it there. Thank you so much, all three of you, for coming in today and going up front.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, our viewers, for watching. I hope you can stay with us throughout the week online and join us again next time.